Hi, I'm Michty Maxx, and I'm here to share the Halloween face makeup from my Sally lip art tutorial. This delightful character from Nightmare Before Christmas is a really simple makeup. However, I decided to add a few extra sprinkles here and there to make it interesting, yet still keep it really easy to do. I'm sure you'll love this tutorial. It'll keep you in stitches. You see what I did there? If you want to see how I did the lip art tutorial or any other Halloween videos, you can check that out in the card or description box. I'm beginning by moisturizing my face with Embryolisse Lait Crème Concentré and just rubbing that into my skin with my fingers. And I smeared a healthy dose of bepanthen ointment onto the lips to moisten those. For the eyes, I primed with Too Faced Shadow Insurance all the way around and into the eyebrows too. The Makeup Forever Flash palette is what I'm using to create Sally's blue skin tone, so I'm mixing the deep blue, white and aqua creams together to create a pale dead color. I'm applying that to my eyelids with my fingertip all the way up to the eyebrow and patting it in to smooth it out. With the Sigma E50 Large Fluff brush, I'm grabbing the pale blue shade from the Revlon Customized palette in Smoky Sexy to set that cream base all over the lid. I'm taking that same brush into Sugar Pill Taco eyeshadow and adding a slight highlight to the brow bone with that matte white shade. I have the Sedona Lace EB09 blending brush and Makeup Geek Stealth eyeshadow, which I'm using to create depth through the crease by slowly building up that grey shade above the socket line. I'm buffing some eyeshadow into the outer corner of my eye and taking that all the way into the inner crease. I blended that grey out by using more matte white eyeshadow on the large fluff brush. To create the giant round-eyed appearance that Sally has, I'm taking more of that grey into the inner corner of the eyelid and basically using the spotlight or halo eyeshadow technique. I'm making sure to soften that towards the light blue eyeshadow. I have Too Faced Glitter Glue and I'm using my fingertip to apply a tiny amount to the center of my lid, preparing for the amazing Anastasia Beverly Hills Moonchild Glow Kit. I'm picking up the shade Blue Ice with a MAC 242 and patting that over the sticky base right onto the center of the lid to give a nice bulbous eye look. I blended the edges of that out with more Revlon Pale Blue and the large fluff brush and decided to add more of the grey contour through the socket as well as some extra blue ice all the way up to reach the crease. I touched up the crease with more grey as the eye look is taking shape, and I blended out the edges of the eyeshadow to keep it round at the outer corner. You definitely want a round shape for this look. I whipped out the Colourpop Cream Gel Liner in Exit to cover my lower waterline. I'm being very careful to avoid the contact lenses and not getting any makeup on them. I ran that pencil along my lower lid to create the giant eyeball illusion. I colored in that entire area down to my lowest socket, following the shape of my eyeball and making sure to get right into the roots of my eyelashes. When the eyes look gargantuan and semi-even, I grabbed the Sugar Pill Taco eyeshadow with the Real Techniques detailed brush and set the entire white area. Here's the Physicians Formula eyeliner pen, and I'm creating a thin line along my lash line, keeping it the same width all the way along and leaving it blunt at the end with no wing. Then I curled my eyelashes. And I went back into Blue Ice from the Moonchild palette to highlight the inner tear duct, once again to increase the ocular capacity. I added a thin coat of L'Oreal Telescopic Mascara just to make my lashes black, and I used a lash comb to keep the eyelashes separated and not clumpy. I chose the Sugar Pill False Eyelashes in Precious because they are thin, separated and really long, just like Sally's lashes, and I applied them with regular false eyelash glue. You don't need fake eyelashes for this look, but it does help to give the large eye illusion we're going for. I disguised the false lash band and glue with the eyeliner pen. Unfortunately, a flinch caused a smudge where it was not wanted, and I attempted to clean it up, but whatever. I primed my skin with L'Oreal Lumi Magique Pure Light Primer. I went back to the cream makeup to mix up more of that dead pale blue shade. I splodged on the melange around my face and picked up one of these cheap makeup sponges to pounce it into my skin. As I go along, I modify the shade by adding in more white, trying to match it with a reference picture of Sally. You can use any cream makeup or face paint from the Halloween store that you can get your sticky fingers on. It doesn't have to be this particular cream product. just as long as you can get some sort of light blue face base. These cheap makeup sponges are pretty crummy, but I didn't want to get my usual makeup sponge all creamy and blue, so just use whatever you've got lying around. I didn't take this base onto my ears because I knew they would be covered, and I was too lazy to clean that goop out of there later. But if you will have your ears exposed, it's best to get that blue all up in there. Basically, you want to cover any exposed areas. I dragged the blue cream down my neck and faded it out, and based on what you're wearing, you should decide how low you need to take it. Once you have enough coverage over your face, it's time to set that base, because these cream products will transfer rather terribly. I wanted to set my face with that pale blue eyeshadow, but it was way too hard to get my large brush into that tiny pan without getting the dark color next to it. I had to clean up that dark smudge with more white cream, and while I was at it, I added a bit of a highlight down the nose and along the tops of my cheekbones. I ended up using some MAC Prep and Prime translucent powder to set the cream base using the Sedona Lace 919 powder brush. Make sure you do this delicately and the cream has set for a while because you can take off some product. If that happens, just use your sponge and cover that area. For under the eyes, I used the large fluff brush and the light blue eyeshadow, dabbing that carefully around the new eyeball shape, basically using that as a transition shade there. I added a bit down the nose for a tiny bit of contour too. Then I picked up Makeup Geek Stealth again on the same Sedona Lace EB09 blending brush to shade the lower lid. I'm also joining that to the upper crease. I took a mix of Mochi and Velocity from this Sugar Pill palette on the same brush to bring a tiny tinge of blue and create a bulge so the eyeball looks nice and large. I decided to bring those blue tones through the upper socket to keep everything cohesive and give the illusion of a natural shadow that you would see on a blue skin color. I used the large fluff brush to buff that out and added more white eyeshadow to the brow bone, then blended that into the crease. I used the large fluff brush to buff that out and added more white eyeshadow to the brow bone, then blended that into the crease. Back to Stealth, and I'm using the Detail Shader brush to more densely define the lower lash line, and blending that out using the brush sideways. I also used the fluffy blending brush to keep it all soft. I whipped out the Moonchild palette again and dipped into Blue Ice with the Anastasia Beverly Hills 23 brush to highlight the tops of my cheekbones with an eerie blue glow, which is perfect for this look. I also applied some down my nose, chin, cupid's bow, and center of my forehead. I really packed it on the cheekbones, swooping it around in a C shape, and even using my fingertip. I plunged back into Mochi and Velocity and even mixed in some white taco to run through my eyebrows. Sally doesn't have any eyebrows, but I still wanted to lightly define the feature and keep it in the blue tone. I went into that same deep blue eyeshadow and dusted off the excess before running that under my cheekbones with the MAC 116 brush to provide a contour for a thinner dead face shape. This is sort of like a dead toned blush. I used a powder brush to blend that out, and I dipped into Stealth again to deepen the shading, focusing that at the back and blending it into the blue shadow. Now onto the stitches, and I'm starting with Stealth on the detail brush, and beginning with the skin separations. I'm sketching out the one above my right eye and the one streaming down my cheek. I didn't like the forehead line, and I blended that with the sponge to change the curve so it meets up with the lower line. It ended up a little thicker than I wanted, but that's fine. I added the neckline across the crease in my neck, and curved out the two lines either side of my mouth. I used Makeup Geek Corrupt eyeshadow to darken up the slices, and you can go directly into black if you are confident with your placement. Although it's kinda hard to match a round cartoon face with your own human bone structure. For the stitches, I went in with that grey shadow on the Sigma E06 winged liner brush and marked out all the lines and crosses, vaguely following a reference photo, but honestly it doesn't matter as long as you get the general stitched up feel. I followed those hatch marks all along the skin slices until I've covered every part. I did this pretty roughly, and it shows that you can still get a spooky dramatic effect without obsessive precision. For the stitches themselves, I took the white, aqua, and blue creams to mix a more vibrant shade than the skin tone and applied that next to the hatch marks with the Real Techniques Detail Shader brush. I'm just employing the width of the brush to shape the stitches. And I'm using my lines as a guide since they will designate the shadows of the stitches later. I probably should have done this step before creating the grey crosses and lines, but since this is the first time I've done something like this, I guess I did it a little backwards. It doesn't matter anyway, because then you just go back in with the grey shadow again. You could create more realistic shadowing to give the stitches a 3D effect. However, I went for a more simplistic and cartoon style, which is also easier to do. So I'm going back to add definition to the stitches with that winged liner brush and the grey shadow, making sure the crossed stitches overlap each other and the shading is generally on the same side of each chunk of stitches. Lastly, I carefully patted some white shadow over the cream stitches to set them, which also acts as a bit of a highlight for a more 3D look. After I covered all the stitches, including the ones on my neck, I then completed the lips, which you can check out in my Sally-inspired lip art tutorial, linked in the usual places. You can go with a straight dark red lip. However, I decided to make it a little more interesting and put my own Michty stamp on it. After the lips were done, I decided the lower lid needed more definition, so I went back in with some stealth and a tiny bit of corrupt on that little angled brush, and I joined up the outer edge to the upper lid. And then I'm done painting up myself all stitched and undead. This is the first time I've done any face painting or more involved character makeup, and although it was very different to work with the cream products on the face, it was doable and fun, and I'm sure this will be easy enough for anyone who wants to get all blue and dead for Halloween. You can use the same techniques to create any undead creature or creepy doll in any color scheme you like. You can simplify this look and just do the elements you like, and still get a Sally looking costume if you want to dress up like this for a bit of a trick or treat. I'll have a playlist with all my Halloween videos so you can set eyes on them too. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this stitched up doll Halloween makeup tutorial, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Also check out my band and podcast on iTunes. And if you want to send me a letter or something, I have my PO box in the description box.